Hello and welcome back to Take Two. We're your hosts. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Stacy.
And today we're talking about intrusive thoughts. So we're just going to explain what intrusive thoughts are, what they're not, how you can spot an intrusive thought and label it, and then what you can do if you're struggling with having intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, I got it off the top of my head.
Just how to manage them.
Yeah. But before we get into intrusive thoughts, I wanted to check in with you because I'm aware that, it was Mother's Day this past week, yesterday. This past week, yesterday.
Yeah.
And last year.
Yeah, last year.
Was not your best Mother's Day.
I feel like the family dropped the ball. They couldn't have done worse than last year. And
they could only go up.
Literally.
What did they do last year?
The bar was low. I said, I think the key to happiness is a
keep the bar low.
Super low bar. No, last year I don't know. Nobody got me anything. Normally Paul will get me flowers and a card. And Avery always makes a super big deal, which this year she did this whole picture collage.
Oh.
I'll show it to you. So cute with a letter on the back. Oh. She was coming off of a cruise with her friend, if you remember. She went on a cruise. Mm-hmm. She came home the night before Mother's Day and literally goes, "Oh, I didn't know it was Mother's Day." And I should have known from there. Bad.
You should have just set the expectations low.
Bad day. So then I was so mad the whole day.
You were like, "Oh, you didn't know," thinking she's joking.
Right. No, she really didn't know. And then I don't know why the whole family just kind of.
Nothing.
It was just the worst ever last year. But this year was good.
What did they do
to be positive, because I made it very clear that was unacceptable.
There you go.
Well, I did. And I told Paul, this is top down, buddy. On Father's Day, you think that they make you cards for fun?
No.
Avery maybe does. But no, you tell them you have to do something.
Put some effort in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I heard him warn them verbally. You do something special for your mom. So, everybody was sweet.
So, Avery gave you collage, but what about...
Ella ordered me something and I didn't get it yet.
Okay.
Yes. And then...
Is it closed?
I don't know what it is.
Really?
She had done, a book that you fill in the blanks.
Oh.
And then Paul didn't give her the credit card in time, so, her answers went away. But I think her and Nick got me something and then just, cards. Okay. But, it was cute. I don't... the bar's not high. And then Paul did get me chocolate-covered strawberries and flowers.
Okay.
Which is kind of how normally they are. Last year was a real drop-off. I was I feel like I deserve more than this. I think as moms, we deserve the day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. More than a day, but at least the day.
At least the day. What did you do?
Well, my mom's in Ireland. Oh. Classic. So I called her and she said, "I already heard from Maggie," who's not
your friend?
My friend. She's like, "Maggie already wished me Happy Mother's Day." So I got a little... And then I called my brother 7 times to remind him to call my mom. Still don't think he called my mom to wish her Happy Mother's Day.
Isn't that funny? I do that with my brother, too.
Yeah.
I didn't do it this time,
I texted him, never got a chance. I'm like, just text her.
Yeah.
So.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. But then we went to Danny's
for family. His mom,
yeah.
Sure.
So with his mom and with his grandma's. And then, of course, as you were saying, your husband is threatening your children. I told Danny, you got to figure out what to get your mom.
Yeah.
So we did a personalized song.
What?
The TikTok ads got me. You can buy a song.
Okay.
And personalize it. So an artist writes a song. So it's
kind of like when we were little and it was a book with your name in it.
Yes, but it was you have 3 kids. I'll send it to you. It's
I want to see it.
Yeah. And it's you had 3 kids and you taught us yeah. I'm proud of myself.
How did she receive that? Did she love it?
Oh, yeah, she was crying.
That's so interesting.
Tears all around. And then Danny's grandma thought it was Danny singing. And I was like,
stop.
No.
Next year.
Never.
Never?
We don't need to hear Danny sing. I hear the tin whistle enough as it is.
That's true.
Yeah.
True.
Mm.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's good. And then will you do something with your mom when she comes back, or is it?
Probably should. Yeah.
Do a little something. I'll encourage you.
Well, I'm going to meet her in Ireland, so maybe I'll bring something.
Oh, yeah. Bring her a little present.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. But
all right.
Into intrusive thoughts.
Okay. Should we just ID
an
intrusive thought?
Yes.
It's an unwanted thought, image, impulse, or urge. So I think the biggest thing about intrusive thoughts is they're unwanted.
Yeah, and I like how you brought in image, because I think people only think of intrusive thoughts as thoughts.
Or urge.
And I think they only think of them what they see on TikTok, which did inspire some of this. We were laughing about the TikTok you sent me.
There were a couple really funny TikToks, but the one that I sent Lindsay a while ago, Should I say what it said? Do you want to say what it said?
No,
I should.
Yeah.
It was a woman with OCD, and she was talking about like realizing, like when she realized her anxiety was different than her friend's
Or
anxiety.
like what an intrusive thought is versus an impulsive thought.
Yes, or just an anxiety thought. You know, just like a nervous
anxious thought.
Yeah. So she was on a trip with her friends, a girls' trip, and they're all on the plane, and her friends were like, "Oh my gosh, like, did you ever think
what if
the plane gets hijacked?" And then she was like, "No, but I've thought, what if I hijack this plane?" And it's just, we were dying because we're like, that is so funny. It's so perfect.
Yes.
Like the degree of.
The difference.
Yes.
And how intrusive thoughts are really uncomfortable in nature. Like that's not the point of them, but that's the effect that they have. And so when someone has intrusive thoughts, it's like, what's wrong with me? Why do I think like this?
Like assigning meaning to it. Like, why would I?
Like, I want to hijack this
take
plane.
down a plane.
And it's like, no, you don't.
Which, by the way, before we go any further, literally, I told you this. I'm going to be on a no-fly list because
you sent me the TikTok probably like a year ago.
I mean, so long ago. So I wanted to find it, couldn't find it, did every search with the words, what if I hijack a plane? What my friend said, and then if I hijack, so for sure, if you travel with me, you're going
to be pulled.
There are going to be some questions.
You're going to be like, Stacy McCarthy, we've been waiting for you.
I'm going to need you. They're like, we have a Google search. But yeah, exactly. Like,
you have your printout of all your searches.
I know. Like,
I was just looking for a TikTok.
So many different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you assigned meaning to that thought, what kind of person am I that I think I could hijack a plane?
Yes. And I think what we were talking about before that you brought up that I had no idea about. I mean, I knew intrusive thoughts were common, right?
Yeah.
So do we think we have a good understanding of what intrusive thoughts are? Just
maybe give like another example.
Yeah, like an uncomfortable thought that's like, the point is that it makes you extremely uncomfortable. So it's something, not an impulsive thought like, oh, I want to cut my hair. Like, I want to get a haircut. Like, it would be like an impulsive thought.
I want to stab the person cutting my hair with these scissors. Or not even want to. I have a vision.
Like, I want to harm myself, someone else. Like, really uncomfortable.
That's a good example, though. Like, I want to cut my hair versus I want to take the scissors.
Like, while you're cutting your hair, getting your hair cut, I want to
stab my neck.
Yeah. So, and I think for me, intrusive thoughts, one that I've noticed I have a lot is like when I'm driving and you're just like, how quickly or easily could I just veer it off a cliff or whatever?
Well, and I think that's really common because I think that's what you were going to say. Like 90% of people, up to 94 in some studies that they think have intrusive thoughts. But the problem is like when that thought gets stuck and when you assign meaning. So for you,
I don't assign meaning.
Yeah, so what happens when you have that thought?
I just laugh. I'm like, I tell myself it's a reminder of like free will as humans, like how much like power maybe we hold. But I know myself well enough to know I would never, and maybe because I'm a therapist and we know what intrusive thoughts are, I'm always like, I would never actually do that.
Right.
But I think, we talked a little bit about OCD, which has a lot of
that's a good OCD example. So what would happen? Let's take that example and play it out. Like, what if you had OCD? How could that look?
Well, two ways, right? So with OCD, sometimes we do see like compulsions as a way to calm down the intrusive thoughts.
Somebody could say like, I have to say this prayer in my head and I won't do it.
And
or
it's
I have
really
to count
irrational,
to 10.
right? So that's why like people themselves who have OCD feel like they're going crazy. Like that's what they report to us. But also people themselves feel like they're going, like they think they're going crazy because of how irrational sometimes the compulsion piece is. And so it'll be like, maybe I need to tap on my steering wheel 7 times and then I won't veer off the side of the road. And what it is it's like your brain saying, do this thing. So then this other thing won't happen. But what happens when you do that is then you constantly need to do it more and more.
Yeah, it's cyclical.
So then we were talking about what can happen is, let's say the intrusive thought keeps popping. You have to keep tapping, and then it gets more intense and it more frequent, and then people might avoid things that cause
because you're believing
triggers.
it. You're giving it so much meaning by thinking,
I'm going to do this.
If I don't tap, this is going to happen. And eventually I think it can become so big and exhausting, people decide, and this does happen. Yeah. I'm not going to drive.
I'm going to avoid it.
Because I know I'm probably going to purposely hit somebody.
Something bad could happen.
Yes. And that's how you really get stuck.
So and it starts to impact your functioning a lot more. And I think also with a lot of my OCD clients, I hear, and I think you were saying this, you've heard this as well, where to stick on the driving front, where they are fearful that they hit someone and they don't remember.
Oh, yes.
And like we know thoughts aren't facts, but in your OCD brain, it's that what if that keeps going. What if you did hit someone? What if you did? And so it's that intrusive thought in showing up in a little bit of a different way. And then they do things to decrease the anxiety. So like maybe they drive around or keep checking or things like that.
It can be debilitating. I had a client, this is years ago, that quit driving because he would circle the same route that he took because he
was worried.
In his head really thought he hit somebody. So that's what happens when you assign meaning to it.
How uncomfortable that
Oh my
must
gosh,
feel.
if you thought, I mean, everyone's had that where like, did I lock the door or did I turn the oven off? But imagine that, but like all the time and on a loop. So that's why it's so important to break that loop.
The cycle.
Yes. And to label it as like, this is just an intrusive thought.
And I think what we're saying is there's a difference, like, okay, 90% of people may experience an intrusive thought. But then there's a large portion that are able to just say, oh, that was weird or that was uncomfortable. And then there's a portion of the population, which I think it's like only 10% of the population has OCD. Does that sound high?
Yeah.
That sounds a little
high. I know social, I think, is like the most anxiety. It's 13.
Okay, so maybe.
Yeah.
But a lot lower of a percentage of people have the intrusive thoughts to a point that it's causing a lot of impact in their functioning.
And distress. And I mean, and I think a lot of it too, just outside of the impacts that it has on your functioning, is internally, so many people feel so shameful because a lot of times the intrusive thoughts.
Imagine telling your friends that, like, oh, when I drive, I think, like it's like,
well,
it's
and
hard
a lot
to
of times
open
intrusive
up about.
thoughts are like sexually inappropriate or violent or like sacrilegious, whatever it is. And it just feels so inappropriate. And I think if you don't know, you internalize it and you start to feel shame, and then that leads down a whole nother road. So you have like the behavioral impact, and then I think you have the psychological impact. And I think like when you feel shame, that is a whole
nother ball game.
Like shame is bad. Like we try to
avoid shame.
Avoid
shaming
you're gonna avoid
yourself.
anything. But to stay out of that place of shame. And I think just normalizing it. Like I told you my example when I was younger. I think the family tree definitely has some OCD in it. Like, I feel like now we know this. You know what I mean? That like we're a little anxious and there's some OCD. When I was younger, I always, well, not even younger, like always thought I was going to open the car door.
While someone else is driving?
On the highway. Only when someone else was driving.
Okay.
But like thinking I was going to do it and then it would stress me out. It was almost like people say on a plane. They're like, I'm going to open the exit.
Emergency exit.
I would never do that. I don't like bodily harm. There's no part of me. But it really did bother me. And it happened so much until honestly, I think I started to learn more about, the brain and these thoughts and just, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean I want to do this. And it almost like then you can like let it go, right?
Well, I think when you don't fear it, it holds a lot of power when you're afraid of your thoughts.
Absolutely.
So that gets us to the point of what to do if you are experiencing intrusive
How do you
thoughts.
Not fear these thoughts? Because by nature, they don't really align with you or they're scary. So do you want to start with an example?
Okay. An example of what to do, what I do a lot with my clients about intrusive thoughts. Well, the first thing we always talk about is labeling it. Like, so we'll go take two moment, right?
Yes.
We love a take two moment.
Take it.
So you take two, like you notice you're having an uncomfortable thought. You can probably feel it in your body, right? Like the heart racing or like the restlessness. And so at that moment, pause and check in with yourself. What do I need? Label the feeling like I'm having an intrusive thought. I think that's super powerful. And I like to think about thoughts as like on a conveyor belt. What happens is on a conveyor belt, there's a book I love. It's called For Kids. If anyone who has kids who struggle with OCD, it's called What to Do When Your Brain Gets Stuck. Big fan. And the example they give, it's kind of like junk thoughts. So it's like we have thoughts and they come through the conveyor belt and they're being sorted into important or not important. And what happens is our brain kind of, the intrusive thoughts coming along the conveyor belt and we grab hold of it and think, oh my goodness, because of how uncomfortable it is, this is an important thought.
Right.
Why am I thinking like this? Let me understand this. And then we get stuck on it because we're paying so much attention to it. So I like the idea of you can't always control what thoughts come into your brain, but you control how much attention you give them. So the idea of saying, okay, this is the conveyor belt thought and it's a junk thought. And I'm telling myself it's important. And being able to reframe the thoughts a little bit like that.
I love that. I've seen that too with junk mail. Like we've got like the important mail and the inbox and the junk mail. And just realizing that's a junk thought. And that's part of labeling it too, right?
Yes.
Like you said, the first step, I think the first take too is, and that was a good point. Like I'm feeling this in my body. I'm having a reaction. This is an intrusive thought.
Yes.
And this thought means literally nothing. You know what I mean? Like
thoughts aren't facts.
Yes. It doesn't mean anything until I give it meaning. So it's really... It is empowering because you do have a lot of control.
Yes.
But it's once you go down that path and you get in a cycle of anxiety, it's hard to break. And I think an analogy like that I like to use, and I know you've used too, is instead of, trying to resist it, like I will not get in the car and think about this. Like if I got in the car and was like, I will not think about the handle. I will not look at the handle.
Stop thinking about it. Stop thinking about it.
Yeah, then it becomes more attractive,
because our brain doesn't work in negatives.
Exactly. It's like what you resist persists. The whole
don't what you resist persists.
It's our other bumper sticker. Our line.
We're going to start a bumper sticker. Like,
it's gonna be our thing.
Yeah.
But we say, think of it like a beach ball, like your intrusive thought or like all of the anxiety cycle is a beach ball. So if you try to push a beach ball down in the water, it takes a lot of energy. You're focusing on it and eventually it's going to come up. And when it does, it's out of your control and it just kind of is like all over. So if you just let a beach ball float next to you, it's just there, So I like the idea of don't work so hard because I'm working so hard to get rid of it. You're making it worse. But accepting is hard, I think, because especially when it's disturbing.
Yes. Yes, because you're like so confused on why you're thinking.
Yeah, like what?
Uncomfortable.
Yes, like do I want to open the door because I want to die? I mean, you could
then
really go down a rabbit hole,
Rabbit hole, yeah.
Then you get into some of the OCD stuff, but it can get really dark really fast. So I think interrupting it is super important. And I like the idea of being able to say it to somebody.
Yeah.
Externalize it so that it's not like
stuck inside of you, and the shame piece that you're talking about, or the power we're taking. When the more power the thought has, the more uncomfortable it's going to be, the more it's going to come up. So that's a way of taking away the power by saying, I'm going to say this to someone else out loud.
Right. Like it's not so shameful and dark and it doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
And then hopefully you say it to someone who can react appropriately. Like us as therapists, I don't get fazed by much because a thought is just a thought. Yeah. So.
And that I like with kids, I like to use, if there's any Harry Potter fans out there listening, there's a part in Harry Potter where, because to your point, our brain doesn't work in negatives. So when we tell ourselves and I'm sure we've all experienced this about any relationships, anything, right? When you tell yourself, don't think about that person, don't think about this, you're really telling
almost
your brain
impossible
to think about it because your brain doesn't understand the don't part.
Literally.
So instead it's like, I say it's like TV channels, right? If I'm watching Criminal Minds and I feel scared, we're having thoughts that make us scared. Let me change my channel, change my TV channel to like The Office or something funny, lighthearted. So when we think about that, I like to use an example from Harry Potter where there's these things called like Dementors, and they're like the bad, whatever, things that come up and they take shape into whatever your biggest fear is. And so there's a scene where Ron, one of the main characters, he's terrified of spiders. And so it's a huge tarantula coming at him, and he thinks about spiders on roller skates, and then it warps into something that's silly because the spider can't walk and it's falling all over the roller skates. So then he took something that made him really uncomfortable and scared and made him something silly. Yeah. So I even have my clients sing their intrusive thoughts or like picture like, oh my gosh, how funny would it be if it's your brain, right? If I opened this car door and had a parachute and flew away. Like you can make it whatever you want instead of... It like lightens it.
I like that example. That's a good example because it makes it lighter.
Yes.
And you can see it different.
Yeah. And so like it's almost not like leaning into it, but the sense of like taking your power back by changing it.
Yeah. The acceptance piece of it. We're like, I'm not accepting it. It's kind of like when we talk about validation, you don't have to like agree with the feeling to validate. I mean, it's a little bit different, but the same concept, just getting some space from it. Okay.
Yeah. Like even the thought of like with, the person who said they would hijack a plane, like I'd be like, let's lean into that and be like, okay, I hijack a plane to give away all the snacks for free. Or like, I'd be like, here's pop for everyone.
To make
like,
it silly.
It doesn't have to be so serious. Yes. And let's be playful with your thoughts. And then that, again, takes the power away, makes it less uncomfortable and
less
easier
shameful,
to manage.
Less dark. And I think you're less likely to think you're going to do something. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It just makes it for
Gives
what
you
it
your
is.
power back.
You can see it for what it is. And I think too, we always talk about language and how you frame it. There's something called cognitive diffusion where you try to get space from the thought. And I think that's good too, to say, I'm having the thought that.
Yes.
Like it's not, I want to throw myself out of the car, which I hate to keep using that. But like, I feel like we're past it. I'm past it. I'm having the thought that I'm going to throw myself out of the car. And then you can zoom out even further and say, I see myself having the thought that I'm going to throw myself out of the car. So it's just like, how much distance can you get?
Space.
Yes, between yourself and this thought. And that's one option. And the option, where it's negative is where you fuse with that thought. And that's where we get into the trouble.
Yes, we start to spiral.
And we get real stressed and bad things can happen.
Yes. I love that. I hope that this is helpful. I feel like we gave some tools.
Oh, something else we were going to say is talking about women and hormones.
Yes.
That a lot of times when you're pregnant or you're having a hormone change.
Oh, yeah.
Because intrusive thoughts, also you can get more of them when you're stressed or when your body's changing. So women before and after they have babies, a lot of times, have intrusive thoughts. So I did have an intrusive thought once when I was really pregnant that I was going to throw this baby I was holding, like off of this. And it was it only happened once, but I really was so disturbed by that thought.
By your own thought.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I'm sure.
Did you say you handed the baby back? You're like, I can't hold
literally
this
hot potato. I was like, this baby needs to get off of me right now.
I am someone who throws babies. Yeah, exactly. No, you're not.
I'm about to have a baby and I am a baby thrower.
Yes.
But it's like, you're not going to do that. But if you lean into it and you start to worry, and just to know, like hormonally, like things like that can happen. It can get worse.
Yeah. And that's where I was telling you, my mom was mentioning after she had me, she's like, I don't know what was going on with me mentally, but that she kept having this intrusive thought that she wasn't taking care of me. So then she started writing down every time she fed me or changed me. Yeah. Like she needed that written reminder, like you are doing your job, like you are okay.
I think that when you have a baby, you're primed for that because you're exhausted. You're not clearly thinking.
I feel like this podcast becomes Lindsay never have children.
Oh my gosh. I'm not even going to say anything.
But it's just like parenting's hard.
Parenting is rough. It is rough. And if you have a little anxiety, have a few kids. see how that goes. But you know what? It gives you an opportunity to have to manage things. That is one. Yeah. Start with the cats. Look, we got started with one cat.
I'm a cat mom.
Went to 2 cats. And now
I know you didn't even ask me how my Mother's Day is as a cat mom.
Sorry. That was very rude. But you know what? Now we keep sending you cat TikToks.
I know. I'm here for
my whole family.
Ella sent me one and then you sent me the same one. I'm like, Ella sent me this 24 hours ago.
She sent it to me. I didn't know she was sending it to you. But it's like now that's the new thing. It's the cat talk.
I like it. I'm here for it.
But yeah, I think take 2 on your intrusive thoughts.
Yes.
Be aware.
Recognize they're very common. Make them funny. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different tools you can use, but just label it and know, like you said, thoughts are not facts. This doesn't mean anything about you. This doesn't mean something you want to do. You're not a bad person.
No, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
We want to normalize it.
Yes. Okay, so I think that's it for today.
I think so. And then if we can link a TikTok, maybe. I did find one TikTok on intrusive thoughts. It was pretty funny, I thought.
Okay.
Because I like it. The TikToks that make light of it, too. It's like just
laugh about it.
Yeah, it's realizing we all have this. It's not just you.
Okay. And people can find that and more information, staying up to date on the pod at Take2Pod on TikTok and
Take2.pod
on Instagram.
Yeah. And we're going to start it going. We're going to get it going.
Yep. So check out what's coming up on there.
Yes, and just take 2 on your thoughts.
And thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Do the double wave.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Take 2 podcast. Lindsay and Stacy are licensed therapists, but they aren't your therapists, and this podcast is not therapy. Production assistance is provided by Bird Blue Creative at bird.blue.